and the director of the forum. Today's event is a very special one. The forum hosts regular events on Friday afternoons throughout the school year, and we try to coordinate our schedule with the DWC schedule. Often our events are guest speakers and lectures. Today, I'm very excited about a film screening that we're going to have this afternoon, and the director, Mr. Joe Campo, is with us and will be leading our discussion afterwards. It's really my pleasure now to introduce today's event. As I said, we're joined in the back for the time being by Mr. Joseph Campo, who will lead our discussion. He is the CEO of Grassroots Films and executive producer of God in the Streets of New York City, Fishers of Men, commissioned by the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, and the award-winning documentary, The Human Experience. And he's the director of his newest release, Outcasts, that we'll see this afternoon. Through the power of image and sound, he likes to say, Grassroots Films aims to inspire and change the way people see reality by bringing audiences to places which are known to exist but are hard to find. Mr. Campo is also the current director of the St. Francis House, which was founded by Father Benedict Groeschel in 1967. The father of 2 sons and a third order Franciscan, he's served as a drug and alcohol counselor, mentor, and father figure to the residents for 29 years. He also served for 15 years as the director of Youth 2000, organizing Eucharistic-centered retreats throughout the New York area and serving the poorest of the poor in the inner cities. An accomplished musician, during this time he was also the music director of the Youth 2000 New York Music Ministry. The documentary this afternoon follows the work of the Community of the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal. The Franciscan Order, begun 8 centuries ago or so, can best be compared to an old tree. It has deep roots and diverse branches. Its history accounts for the various types of Franciscans who have emerged over the years, each identified by a different cut and color. One of the tree's larger branches came into existence in the early 16th century, the Capuchins. The Community of Franciscan Friars of the Renewal was begun in 1987 by 8 Capuchin friars desiring to work more definitively for personal and communal reform within the Catholic Church. The life and apostolate of the friars are rooted in the ideals and spirit of the Capuchin reform born in the early 16th century. Outcasts, focused on their apostolate, was released to widespread acclaim in 2016. It runs just over an hour, and after its conclusion, we'll begin our discussion, which will last for about a half hour or so. Everything you're about to see happened in real time, with real people, in locations all over the world. I hope you enjoy. If you would, wait for me to bring you the microphone. We're going to record our discussion for our website for the future. And I'd love to begin with a student question first, if there is one.
Before the first question, I've been traveling around different parts of the United States showing the film. Usually I have a Franciscan friar with me that represents the friars. He wasn't able to make it today. He actually missed the train. Typical friar. And I would say it to him. But so at the end of the film, usually there's a question and answer. That's what I'm here for. You can ask any question that you like. Nothing really is too personal. I'll do the best I can, whether it's from the director's point of view or even someone in the film. Jonathan, who you saw in the film where his brother passed away, he's actually a resident in a home that I run called the St. Francis Home. And so I was originally going to make a film just about Jonathan, but it turns out that we were able to bridge the two together because he was first discovered, brought to us by the Franciscan Friars, so we picked up the ball from there. So I'm here to answer any question that you may have. Otherwise, I could probably stand here and look at you, and you can look at me. And
I missed the first part of the movie, but I was wondering what kind of friars were they?
Franciscan Friars of the Renewal. They're a renewal group that started back in 1987, and they follow St. Francis.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing the film. I thought, obviously, it's very inspiring to see the friars engaging with our, fellow brothers and sisters, members of the human community, and treating them that way. I think the danger with this sort of inspirational story is it inspires us by showing us what other people can do. And I wonder, what do you think, what lessons should those of us who haven't taken vows of poverty take from this about how we can stop casting out these people who are outcasts?
You know, what I found working with the poor, and the friars actually say it in the film, they're very authentic people. You know, if you ever encounter a homeless person on the street, and homeless are everywhere, all over the world, one of the first things you might want to do is ask them their name and give them that dignity. You know, I'll tell you just a really quick story that running the St. Francis Home, I work with the poor. And I was walking down Manhattan Avenue in Brooklyn where we live, and I had two of the young men with me, and they said, "Can we stop and get McDonald's?" And I said, "No, I'm not a McDonald's guy. Let's pick out something else." But they knew if they asked me enough times, they would get their way, and they did. But before we were going into McDonald's, quite frankly, Tommy was sitting outside, who was a homeless man in our neighborhood. And I said, "Guys, before we go into McDonald's, let's just see if Tommy needs anything." So I went over to Tommy, and I said, "Tommy, are you hungry?" And he gave me the finger. I took that as a yes, honestly. And I said, "Listen, I'll get you that ham sandwich that I know that you like." I said, "But don't leave here. Wait until I get back." And he curses at me, and he says, "And don't forget the coffee." And I said, "I won't." And the two guys that are with me said, "Why do you let this guy abuse you like that?" I said, "He's angry. He's angry at the world. We don't know what his problems are. He's just directing it towards me. I'm just trying to help the guy." So when I got back with the sandwich, Tommy was still there, thank God. I said, "Here's your sandwich. I hope you enjoy it." And he goes, "Where's the coffee?" I said, "I got the coffee. The coffee's right here." Now, at that time, I want you to know I was feeling very holy. You know, I did this thing. And I said, "Oh, by the way, Tommy, before we leave, did you say your prayers today?" And he said to me, "How do you think I got the sandwich?" It's a true story. Working with the poor can be very joyful. A lot of situations that you saw us in were very, very dangerous. I don't expect anyone would do what we did. But to be kind and gentle to our brothers and sisters who are less fortunate than us, it's like Christmas every day when you're working with them. There was another question, I think, right over here, right?
Sir, thank you for your time being here today and for being able to be a minister to these amazing stories. I just want to introduce myself real quick. My name is Miles. I work at Habitat for Humanity. I'm actually joined, very ironically, by many of my teammates at Habitat for Humanity who are in the same row. And a really big focus for us this year as an organization has been being able to really capture the beauty and the rawness and the authenticity of the stories of the families that we help. And, being on the build site for the first time this year has really been something that's been powerful to me as well as my teammates and our volunteers and our families. And I wanted to hear from you, how do you go about building the trust to be able to tell these stories? And how did you let the families drive the stories? I'm interested in, as a creative, like, how did the storytelling come about to you, and how did you wrap it all together like you did?
Yeah, that's a great question. We had a concept of what we wanted to do. Nothing worked out. Honestly, nothing worked out. You're shooting a documentary. However, the people were driving the stories, not us. They trusted us. It's amazing when you're working with people who live on the street, whether they're drug addicts, alcoholics, just down on their luck, or whatever, They're very intuitive. You cannot fool them. I'm working at the St. Francis House with poor people for over 30 years. You can't fool them. They know in the first 3 minutes whether they can trust you or not because they've been through it. The people who were supposed to love them the most have hurt them. But they're so authentic and so genuine, And so when you're looking at a person and you're speaking to them, they know. They know. And not everybody that we filmed is in the film. Some people said they didn't want to be in a film. We took them right out of the film, And I personally asked some of the people, why would you put yourself out there like this? I mean, it's pretty embarrassing, some of these things that they've done or that they're going through, even though most of them are victims, if you will, And they said simply, everybody said the same thing. I asked 5 people said the same thing. Because maybe it'll help someone else. There they are trying to help someone else. The ones who need the most help. We did another film when I was in Africa, and, we went into someone's tent or whatever. And she had nothing, but she wanted us to eat half the food that she had. Beautiful. Beautiful. They taught me everything I know. That's really basically what it comes down to. And you have to love them with the love that God gave you to love them. And then you're authentic, And so together hopefully we could help each other. That's basically what it comes down to. Is that okay? Does that answer your question? Yeah,
Okay. Phil Devine, Emeritus Professor of Philosophy here. First of all, what the Friars are doing is just wonderful. And I'm going to say some things that are rather provocative. Therefore, I'm going to preface it by saying I am not an epidemiologist. I'm not a doctor. I don't presume to give anybody medical advice. However, I do have some understanding of human social psychology and social philosophy. And I have witnessed within a year, a sudden switch in the public spirit. Creating outcasts has now been considered good, virtuous, a mark of moral, intellectual, and social superiority. You're supposed to shun other people. It's called social distancing. You get rants and raves about shunning and shaming the unvaccinated, whether or not they have decent reasons for being unvaccinated or not, or they're just stupid. All of a sudden, Donald Trump was an evil man because he believed in a border wall and wanted to shut down travel from China. There's a quick flip-flop, and governors make ridiculous attempts to keep people from moving from state to state. In short, shunning has become a good thing, and although most of the victims of it are nowhere in as bad shape as the ones you talk about, all of a sudden the number of outcasts has suddenly multiplied. Do the Friars, do you as a Christian have anything to say to that?
Wow. You said a lot. We're on the same page. There's no question about it, God has created us to be together. What can I say? He's created us to be together, to love one another, to love your neighbor more than you love yourself. I hear a lot when young people come to the St. Francis House, or even when I'm in the Bronx, well, if you don't love yourself first, then you can't love anybody else. That's a bunch of crap. No, you have to love the other person. You learn about yourself by loving other people, by being with other people. Of course you have to take care of yourself. Of course. But in a narcissistic society, it's gone too far. My opinion, it's just gone too far. And so we need to be together the way God created us to be together. Say that again. Say that. Not only sexual love. Exactly. Of course, the world will teach you differently. But we're not of the world, We live here, we have to go through here, and we're going to go through the best that we possibly can. But we're going to go through as Christians. Christianity, Catholics that we are, it's not just because, we're Catholic. No, this is our identity. This is who we are. And so going through this crisis and everything else, we're going through it with Christ. We're not going through it alone. I hope that helps a little bit.
Just a quick question from me. I felt like we saw maybe a brief glimpse, but not very much at all, of discouragement on the part of the friars doing very difficult work. I thought it was helpful to see, a very spotty record of results and success, and that's a helpful, realistic lens. Did you see, as you were, as you have engaged with them, as you were making this film, did you see significant experiences of discouragement and how they deal with that?
Well, that seems like a two-part question almost. There was not a lot of success stories in that film. Jonathan's brother died. The woman who was a prostitute went back out. There's not a lot of success stories in this business, if you will, But the second part of the question would be, is that, first of all, we're not God. We do the best we can with who's ever in front of us at that time. And that's basically what they do. And if you notice, the friars did not preach in the film. There was no preaching by the friars. You saw the friars in silence. You saw them praying. And obviously you knew what they were doing. But you never heard them actually pray. All of that came from our characters, our stars in the movie. They did all the preaching. They were the ones who were teaching us. Even especially Jonathan, who calls me up every day and asks me, can we pray? Yes, of course we can pray every day. If I forget to pray, Jonathan will call me and remind me. It's amazing, But the whole idea of this is just to help the person that's in front of you, I mean, again, there's not a lot of success stories. There's just not. People are wounded. People are hurt. In the beginning when I first got into this, I thought I could help everybody. I did. I wanted to. It was more of a desire than anything. I still have that desire. But as you get older and you go through life and you realize you can only do so much, but you do the best you can. And at the end of the day, we put up a good fight. We're going to fight for them. There's another question right here.
First of all, I want to say thank you so much. That was amazing. It was really difficult, but very amazing. It's funny because I saw success all through that story. When the prostitute came back and made the sign of the cross as she walked out, felt like God was present. When the woman who was on the bed and she couldn't move, she had a joy in her. Now, it was because the incarnation, those men gave their lives over to Christ, and they changed her life. It was amazing. So there were so many parts of that to me. And then the place when they went to Ireland, oh my gosh, that was the worst place. It was like moving into hell. It really was like moving into hell. And they changed those people's lives. So, no, I thought there was so much success in that movie. I just loved it all, except for the very end, and I really had to leave because I saw this film once before, and when they went back to those drugs, I just couldn't do it. It was too much. But the rest of it, I could just, So, thank you so much.
Welcome. The underlying premise of the film is love. You said it. Yeah.
I also want to say thank you for the film and being here. And this is also like the first opportunity I've had to learn about the Franciscan Friars at the Renewal. So that was really cool to learn about them and the work they do. I was wondering if there is significance to the locations that you chose. I'm sure there is, but I didn't know if you knew some of the friars that were working there beforehand, or how that works, how they kind of decide where they will go, that sort of thing.
Well, we didn't have a big budget, so I called the friaries and asked them if I could come and stay there with my crew at the friaries. And we got a yes on all the ones that you saw. So that was the reason why we picked that up. We didn't know exactly what was going to happen when we got there. As a matter of fact, something I should say is that when the guys went out with the prostitutes at night to the crack den, the friars don't go out at night and, you know, and preach to people at night. They actually pick up the pieces in the morning. It's basically what we were trying to show there, you know. The cameramen just, I happened to be in New York at the time, and they called up and they said, listen, they want to go out at night, and, you know, do you think we should do this? And I said, yes, you should do this. But a friar is probably not going to go with you. So they did it. We didn't know, again, exactly what was going to happen. And even when the guys went to the prison, we were specifically told, do not come. Do not go to the prison. You're not getting in. And I said to the guys, just go. Just knock on the door. See what happens. They opened the doors, just let everybody in like we were supposed to be there. So we just kept on praying and pushing our way through, praying and pushing our way through. And we were blessed through the whole film. And there's also the Sisters of the Renewal, too, in case you'd like to know. Not just the friars, the sisters also.
Yeah, once again, thank you very, very much. This gentleman here asked a question about what drove the story, and you said something that intrigued me. You had a concept, but then when you started actually shooting, it all changed. Can you say more about, like, what was your concept and how did it change?
You know, this is so much better than our concept. I hate to ruin the film. I'm glad you enjoyed it. You liked it. Let's move on, folks. That happens on every film, every script. That's why you never want to write it with you when you're filming, you know.
Thank you. This was my second time seeing it, and it was even more powerful the second time. But I want to ask more of a, I don't know what you call, like a technical question about, first of all, did you have a cinematographer, or because I thought you were the one?
Like three of us.
Okay, well, beautiful. And what was the most technically difficult scene to film, and then emotionally the most difficult?
Emotionally, I'll start with that, and maybe even technically, is when we came into the hospital for Jonathan's brother, it was extremely difficult because, you know, I have a personal connection with them, you know. And so when we get in and I saw him, actually I was the one who got his brother into the hospital. They were going to keep him home. You know, he was incontinent at the time. He was like, no, we got to get him in, 2 or 3 days later, when I saw him and I walked in with the cameras, I couldn't believe what I saw, how fast he deteriorated. But, and it was, you know, it rattled my nerves. Honestly, I had tears in my eyes, you know. And thank God we had Father Lewis with us, because at that time he was able to get his last rites. Otherwise, it would have never happened, you know. And they just had him in a room waiting for him to pass away. Basically, that's what was happening. And Jonathan even said he died of AIDS, and what happened was he stopped taking his medication about a year ago. A friend of his had been killed, a very good friend of his, and he became depressed and stopped taking his medication. So he died like they did like in the 70s from AIDS. He was gone in a week and a half or 2 weeks or something like that. So technically also, to film that was extremely difficult, simply because we were in a very small room. When you're in a big area, believe it or not, you have more control in a big area than you do in a small area, you know. And so we were able to capture the moments that we wanted to capture. I probably filmed in there for 45 minutes, that's it. You know, that was it. And we went back twice, actually. There's a scene where you see Jonathan walking out. That wasn't even on the same day, you know. But the next time that we went in there, he just looked so bad that I didn't think it would be appropriate in any way, shape, or form to film him in that condition, you know. But that was the most difficult part, I would say, technically and emotionally.
Thank you. I really loved the film. I noticed in a lot of the different locations there were dogs around, and that must have been intentional for you. And it was powerful for me to see those dogs. And I was wondering, what were you thinking when you included them and gave such close-up shots of the dogs, and what do they mean to you?
Yeah, we kind of think that it's like man's best friend, as they say, you know, and people love dogs. if I would have had kittens, I would have filmed them too, to be honest with you, because the film is so hard to watch. You need things in there that are going to bring you up emotionally. That's why we had that whole scene of the kids playing, kickball on the roof there. You want to take people out of that extremely difficult time and make them feel something good. And so we were fortunate enough to have a lot of dogs around and children. And you're making a film, you want to balance it out as much as you can. Actually, this film, speaking of balance, this film was really 90 minutes. I had to cut it down to 60 minutes simply because it was unbalanced. And I didn't make a lot of friends about cutting the film as much as I did. But it would have been a horror movie. I'm looking at a film that I'm making, or I'm looking at anybody else's film, and I'm saying to myself, why am I watching this? I really want to know what the purpose is. This is more than entertainment. This is supposed to stir your heart, your soul. And so, in doing that, I had to balance it out, and I chopped some of the parts that they're in the trailer, but they're not in the film. And I think it was I stick by that. It was a wise decision. I did not want to make a horror film in any way, shape, or form.
We have time for maybe a couple more questions.
Hi.
Thank you for coming here and showing us such a wonderful film. I'm a musician, and I was wondering who chose the music, and did you have a say in what was to be heard when, and when there was going to be no music? And because I think that adds a lot of the emotional power to the documentary.
I'm the director. With a collaboration, of course, with everyone, And different guys on the staff brought different types of music in. I'm a musician myself, so I have an advantage. I'm a drummer. So I have the advantage of how things are supposed to, beat out, if you will. But it was really a collaboration, There was a lot of music in the film, and any film that I make is really driven. The music drives the film. So, what kind of musician are you? Oh, terrific. Yeah. Oh, nice. Very nice. Yeah.
Thank you so much. This is, that's loud. This is also, I've seen this a few times now, and it's every time there's something new for me, so thank you. I was curious if you have any other films in the works or anything you're working on or hope to.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to probably produce another film with another company out of California, much bigger company than ours, on Medjugorje, if you're familiar with Medjugorje. I was asked to come out there, so we'll see how that works. That's been in the works for about probably 6 months. So.
You get the last word, Catherine.
Well, if it's the last word, here's what I want to say, because I think it was so powerful for me. It's the incarnation, and I can't imagine that could be a horror film, because every time you saw those brothers walking up and down those streets, it was like Christ himself was walking up and down those streets and changing lives. And even though they didn't look like they were changed, they were changed. It was obvious that they were changed, because you could see the spirit in them, the spirit in the brothers, the spirit in the people. And decisions were made freely. The guy who chose to say, it's not for me, he knew what he just didn't have the strength to move forward, but he was given permission to move the way he had that desire, and the prayers were out for him. So, no, it was an incarnational film. I loved it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope you all will join us. We have a reception in the great room. Please feel free to continue the conversation. Thanks so much for being with us this afternoon, and let's thank Mr. Kempa.